What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Locked In Politics. And today we are going to be doing my second to last election prediction of the 2024 cycle. I will be doing one more the night before Election Day, and that will be my last 2024 election video until after the election, or at least during the election. But for now, we are going to be doing the state of the race and my prediction on how I think it's going to go just 4 days out from Election Day. So let's get straight into it. We're going to start with Donald Trump and his safe states. So all of these safe states that I'm highlighting right now are states that I believe Donald Trump will win by 10 points or more. That's my safe margin for Donald Trump in all of these in all of these safe states. So we'll include the regular Donald Trump states. And I do believe, in my prediction right now, I have Donald Trump winning the state of Florida by over 10 points. You look at the early vote there and you see Republicans are actually up. Most recent update was they're up by 11 to 12 points, and this is the early vote. Very good news out of the state of Florida there. And that will do it for the safe states for Donald Trump. I'll go into the safe states for Vice President Kamala Harris. We'll move from the West Coast. We'll start in California, Washington, Oregon, all by 10 points. Pretty confident she'll win them by. Colorado. Colorado is a state that has been moving more and more towards the left, and I think it will be just at that 10-point mark. And you see all of the migrant talk in Aurora, Colorado, and Donald Trump trying to make a point out of that. But this state is just trending so far to the left, and the suburbs of this state are just growing, and it's really just never going to happen for Republicans for a long time in this state. We'll go to Illinois. I think it'll certainly tighten along with New York. I think it is a state that will tighten as well. But these states that, the MSG rally was huge. But overall, these states, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, these, traditionally blue states, they might get tighter, but they're really not going to become under 10 points. And Kamala Harris will have no issue winning in these states. The margins in a state like California might get tighter. Really, in New York, probably, we can see Donald Trump get it maybe within 15 to 20, which would be great for the popular vote, but we don't elect by the popular vote, so it doesn't really mean too much. And then lastly, the safe states, I'll include Maine District 1 for Vice President Kamala Harris, and this is it. So these are all the states that I believe are going to go to Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris by 10 or more points, a safe margin. And now we'll get into the likely states. In the 5 to 10 point margin, so just 5 to 10 points, I think they're going to win them. First, I'll include Alaska. It's been trending a little more towards the left. In 2020, it went to Donald Trump by about 10 points. I think it'll probably go to Donald Trump by 8, 9, 7 to 9 points. Nothing too crazy overall, but still going to Donald Trump nonetheless. I'll include Texas here. I see this going to Donald Trump. I believe he'll make a minor improvement on his 2020 numbers. I think it'll be closer to 2016 where he won the state by around 10. However, I still think it'll be a little less than that. Right now, 8 to 9. Really 8 points looks like the number for Donald Trump in Texas. Early vote looks pretty good. And honestly, I can see Ted Cruz, easily getting, 3-4 points better than Colin Allred in this state. Donald Trump's especially winning by 8 points. I'll include Iowa and Ohio. We saw an Iowa poll say it's going to be within 4. No, I really don't believe that. I think it'll be within 5 to 10, maybe a bit closer, but I really do think in Iowa it's going to be 8 points. Iowa, 8, 9 points, same deal there. These states aren't really too important. We really know where these states are going to go at the end of the day. Same thing with the state of Virginia. You see Donald Trump's going to have a rally in Salem, Virginia, actually. But I still see it going to Vice President Kamala Harris by a likely margin. I think it's going to be tighter. President Biden won this by 10.1 percentage points in 2020. I see it tightening up for sure. No doubt it gets tighter. I still see it in the likely margin between 5 to 6 points. You see interesting turnout in the rural areas of Virginia. Really high turnout in the early vote and, maybe a little less enthusiasm in Democratic areas. But at the end of the day, it's going to be, do these Democrat areas turn out on Election Day? I think they will personally, which will keep this state in the blue column. Same thing with Minnesota. Polls have shown maybe this tightening a little bit. You have Tim Walz, the governor of the state. It has a little bit of an effect. I think it will just narrowly stay in the likely column for the Democrats, probably a little bit closer than Virginia, maybe the exact same 5-6 points in Minnesota, but not going to happen for Donald Trump this go around. Lastly, I'll include the Maine at large going likely for Vice President Kamala Harris, pretty close to that 5-point margin, probably a little bit lower on that scale, 5, 6, 7 points looking like in Maine. And then lastly, Nebraska District 2 going to her by a likely margin. I also did forget to include a Maine 2nd District that will go to Donald Trump by a likely margin. Really confident in that. It'll be higher up in there, probably 8 to 10 points for Donald Trump there. And that leaves us with the 7 swing states and then New Mexico and New Hampshire. So let's go and categorize New Mexico and New Hampshire real quick. I do believe they'll both go to Vice President Kamala Harris. However, I do think they will both be lean margins. I believe Donald Trump will get both of these down to lean margins in New Mexico and New Hampshire, less than 5 points. New Hampshire probably a little bit closer than New Mexico. New Mexico I see being 4 or 5 points in the state. New Hampshire I could see being about 2-3 point win for Vice President Kamala Harris. Still pretty confident in the way these will go, but marginal wise, I do believe that Donald Trump will make improvements in both of these states. And this leaves us with the 7 battleground states. And we'll start with the ones that I am most confident in going to either candidate, and I'll start in the state of Arizona. So we go over to Arizona. Donald Trump and the RCP, all the polls basically, except for a CNN poll, have Donald Trump up in the state. And really, this is just everything pointing to a Trump victory. Allison Till, one of the most accurate pollsters in 2020, Trump up by 4. And overall, this state has just been trending towards Donald Trump. The early vote looks really good there. And quite frankly, I see it being close, but I don't see it being within 1 point. I see Donald Trump winning the state by a lean margin. Probably 2.5 points, 2 to 2.5 points in the state of Arizona, a lean win for Donald Trump. So right now, my final prediction in Arizona, or second to last, I guess you could say, because I will have one more. But right now, my prediction in Arizona is going to be 2 to 2.5 points for Donald Trump, a win in the state. Next, we'll go to the state of Georgia. So we'll look at Georgia as well. And we're seeing similar trends. Donald Trump actually up more in Georgia. I would say I feel pretty equal, honestly, with Arizona and Georgia in terms of how confident I am. And honestly, the margin. I mean, Donald Trump, even better polls here. I mean, you could pick from the slew here of polls that can be good news for Donald Trump. Quite frankly, all of them are good news for Donald Trump. Even this Marist poll has a tie, which, tends to be a little more left. And frankly, you see +5, +6, +4. I don't see it happening for Vice President Kamala Harris. I'm extremely confident in this state. I mean, I would give Vice President Kamala Harris slim odds in this state to win, and which is the reason I also have this state going to Donald Trump by about 2 to 2.5 points. A pretty big swing in a flip, actually, from 2020, giving Donald Trump 246 electoral votes. Next, I'll go into the state of North Carolina. North Carolina, 16 electoral votes. Donald Trump won in 2016 and 2020, in fact. And you see here a Donald Trump lead by about 1.5 points, a little bit tighter. Of course, you have that CNN poll. They dropped a bunch of polls just a few days ago. You have Kamala Harris up by 1. But the key polls I'm looking at, you have Fox News, Trump up by 1. And then, of course, Marist even has Donald Trump up in the state by 2, Insider Advantage by 2. Bloomberg has Donald Trump up in the state as well. Quite frankly, I see this going to Donald Trump maybe a little bit tighter. My prediction in North Carolina is Donald Trump will expand on his 2020 margin. I think he'll win the state by about 1.5 points to 2 points. I don't think he'll get back to 2016 where he won the state by about 3. I think it'll be more 1.5, 2 point percentage point win in the state. Still a lean win in the state, but a little bit closer than Georgia and Arizona. And then lastly, we'll go to the state of Nevada. I'll just finish off the Sun Belt here because why not? The early vote in Nevada is looking extremely promising for Republicans. And there's a bunch of good news to take out of it. Susquehanna, I believe that's how you say that. I could have botched that. I don't really care. has Trump up by 6. Of course, Donald Trump's not going to be up by 6, but you also see the Atlas poll, Trump up by 4. There's some promising signs. CNN, Trump up by 1, and overall, Rasmussen up by 2. So good signs, but then you have Emerson Harris up and Bloomberg Harris up. So I believe this is going to be a tighter state. And it's pretty hard, to make the decision, hey, a state's going to be within 1 or not within 1. But I think the state of Nevada is going to be extremely, extremely, extremely close to that tipping point of being maybe just under 1 point or just over 1 point. But needless to say, I still believe it's going to go to Donald Trump, and I'm going to give it to him by over 1 point, just narrowly. I see this being basically a 1 percentage point win for Donald Trump in the state of Nevada, putting him just 2 electoral votes away and one Rust Belt state away from being the next president of the United States. So what we're going to do here is go each Rust Belt state one by one and see where they're at. I'll start in the state of Pennsylvania, the most important state in this election. So let's go there now. We're going to go over to Pennsylvania. Take a look at the data, and it's a close race. You have a 0.4 percentage point lead, more polls here, and it's a lot of ties, a lot of Trump ones, Harris ones, close, yeah. Frankly, this polling data is good news for Donald Trump. The early vote is trending more and more to Republicans every day. They started in the low 20s of percentage of the voting group, and now they're actually at 32.8% of returned ballots. You saw big lines today. It's Friday, November 1st, in Bucks County, a swing county where Republicans were able to take over the voter registration, and a bunch of long lines and where people were voting for Donald Trump early, getting that last requested by mail ballot you can do. And these polls are promising for Donald Trump. You have Alice, very accurate pollster in 2020, Trump up by 1 just narrowly. That Marist poll came out and did show a Harris lead. But you look at Rasmussen, they had Biden up in the state in 2020. We could actually compare it. You could compare polls, and you see Rasmussen has Biden up by 3. They actually overestimated Biden in the state. But then you go back to 2020, and frankly, you see good signs for Donald Trump in the state if you just compare pollsters. Of course, Insider Advantage, fairly accurate, especially in the Rust Belt, like a state like Michigan. They nailed it in 2020. They have Trump up 1, Quinnipiac Trump up 2. The CNN latest poll has a tie. Overall, these are good signs for Donald Trump in the state. You hear John Fetterman say it, he has a special connection to these voters. I believe he has 3 events scheduled up until Election Day. It's the second most he's going to. He's going to North Carolina 4 times, including today, and then you have him going to Pennsylvania 3 times. You have the extended early vote in Bucks County, which it seems to have helped Republicans, and the early vote data overall by mail has been improved significantly. It doesn't look like Democrats are going to be hitting their made-up firewall of 500,000 votes. They haven't even cracked 400,000 yet. In fact, Republicans are gaining in the percentage and are really barely letting Democrats gain in the raw vote total. And frankly, this is all good news for Donald Trump in Pennsylvania. And you might be surprised by this, but I don't have this state being within 1 point. I have this state going to Donald Trump by about 1 to 1.5 points. The data tells you if Donald Trump gets good turnout on Election Day, if he wins Election Day vote by 13, 14, 15 points, he'll win the state of Pennsylvania, especially if the early vote stays the same. And this state is looking good for Donald Trump, giving him the presidency. My current prediction is that Donald Trump will win the presidency with swing states all going to him by over a point. I think Pennsylvania and Nevada are going to have similar, margins, a point, 1.5, really close. But I have 2 states that I believe are going to be even closer than that, and that is Michigan and Wisconsin. We'll go to Wisconsin first, actually, so we could take a look at Wisconsin polls. And Vice President Kamala Harris actually has just recently taken the lead back, mainly because of a CNN +6 and a Marist +2 poll, and a slew of polls in an aggregate that really has ties, +1, +1, +1, really a tie race. You have 2 Harris polls that are up by a pretty significant amount. That CNN poll really threw everything off. But you look, and it's pretty similar to Pennsylvania, maybe just a lot more ties, but that's what we're seeing recently. These polls are essentially trying to play things safe, which is why you see Vice President Kamala Harris making momentum in the betting markets, because the polls want to be right. How do you be right? You say that it was a dead heat. Of course it's a dead heat. Of course all these races are going to be decided by a couple points. Overall, it's going to be really tight in Wisconsin. There's no doubt about it. Honestly, in my mind, this state is going to be decided within a point. In both 2016 and 2020, it was decided by under 20,000 votes. This state has about 3 million to 4 million voters that will turn out probably this election, and it's going to be tight. It's going to be tens of thousands of votes, maybe even less, to decide the state. Nonetheless, I still think Donald Trump will win it by under a point. That's how it's been decided the past two elections, and that's how I think it's going to go again for Donald Trump by about half a point. That 0.5 percentage points really. I'm not going to say he's going to win the state by 0.67. It's unrealistic to have a prediction that is that specific. But half a point really seems like where Donald Trump is at in this state, and where he's going to make enough. He's going to make enough inroads in this state to flip it back to his column, putting him at 297. Lastly is Michigan, which seems to be the most left-leaning state out of the Rust Belt. Initially, Donald Trump actually took a lead in Michigan by over a point. It was at some point. You had some pretty right poll numbers, but they were quickly ousted by Quinnipiac +4 and a Susquehanna +5. Of course, no one's going to win Michigan by 4 or 5 points, Harris or Trump. No one's going to win the state. It's going to be within, even in best case scenario for either candidate, probably 3 points. But I appreciate pollsters not being scared to put large numbers like this. You saw Susquehanna put a +6 in Nevada. Is it going to happen? No, it's not going to happen. However, I'm tired of what are people who analyze polls and try to do stuff like this? What are they supposed to do with a tie? One, tie. What are we supposed to do? Analyze a tie race and just flip a coin to see who wins? So I appreciate pollsters doing this. Of course, you have the Atlas poll showing a tie, and the Marist poll actually has Harris up by 3. Michigan, so this is what is pretty contradictory to where I was standing in Michigan. I saw the Insider Advantage poll. First of all, I want to say they nailed Michigan in 2020. Their last poll had Biden by 2. He won by 2.8. Really accurate poll. And frankly, they were the closest out of all of these pollsters. And so I really wanted to take their poll into consideration when trying to make that prediction, just because of their past history of being pretty accurate in the state. But taking that with the early data, which looks pretty good for Democrats, I mean, of course it does. They're going to be better. Of course, Republicans are doing better marginally, but Donald Trump has to get his base out. If Donald Trump gets his base out like he can, he will win Michigan. But as of right now, with Michigan being the most left-leaning state, they're almost up by a point. Vice President Kamala Harris is almost up by a point in the average. My second to last final prediction in Michigan will be actually a Harris victory, just narrowly. I have this being the closest state. Sorry, there it is. Tilt blue, probably within 0.3, honestly. That close in Michigan, but I see it happening. The closest state right now I have is Michigan, next to Wisconsin, then Pennsylvania, Nevada, closer to a point and a half, and then you have the remainder of the Sun Belt going to Donald Trump. North Carolina, maybe a point and a half, 2 points. Georgia, Arizona, 2.5, 3. And frankly, this is my second to last prediction before the election. Of course, I will do one the night before election night. I will do my final prediction, where might also do some Senate stuff. I might do my Senate map as well, and where I think the House is going to go. In terms of the popular vote, I believe RCP does actually have Donald Trump up in the national vote, which is kind of insane. So we'll go Trump v. Harris. Of course, Trump actually up by 0.3. I actually don't believe Donald Trump will win the popular vote in this final prediction. I believe you asked me that question a week ago. I'd say, yeah, I think Donald Trump will win it by about maybe half a point. I don't think so. I do think this will be a Harris popular vote, maybe like a tie to Harris +1 in the terms of the popular vote, certainly closer than 2020. But if I had to choose, I would say Harris by 1. Best case with Trump, but my final prediction would be maybe literally a tie, like 49-49 or 48-48, really, really close, depending on the third party share. And frankly, this is my second to last prediction. So if you guys enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.